Hello, how are you? My name is Liam, and today I'm going to tell you what happened on my first field day with Daniel, my father's friend. The sun was still low on the horizon when I heard the deep rumble of the truck's engine approaching. The sound became clearer as it parked in front of my house. My heart immediately sped up. It wasn't just the start of an ordinary workday, but the first time I would spend so much time alone with him. I took a deep breath, grabbed my backpack, and stepped outside. The cool morning air sent a light shiver through me as the breeze brushed against my skin. As soon as I reached the car door, Daniel rolled down the window and smiled in that relaxed way only he could. The sun reflected off his sunglasses, making him look even more confident. "Good morning, kid. Ready to get to work?" he asked with his morning rough voice, lightly tapping the steering wheel with his fingers. I nodded with a somewhat nervous smile and got into the car. The woody scent of his cologne filled the truck's enclosed space, mixed with the faint aroma of the leather seats. I settled into the seat, trying to ignore the fact that our arms brushed lightly as I closed the door. He accelerated, and soon we were on the road, leaving the cityscape behind as the green fields took over the scenery. The radio played soft music, and the silence between us wasn't uncomfortable. It was charged with something unspoken. "Better get used to it," he said, without taking his eyes off the road. "Life in the countryside requires effort, but I'm sure you'll do just fine." The way he spoke seemed to have a double meaning, or maybe it was just in my head, but the way he adjusted his cap, tilting his head slightly to the side while smirking, only made my mind race even faster. That's when I felt it. First, it was a light touch, almost casual. His hand rested on my leg, right there on the inner thigh. My body tensed instantly, my heart pounding in my chest as if it had been caught off guard. But he didn't pull away. His fingers moved slowly, tracing a gentle path, almost as if testing my limits. My breathing grew heavier, and even without taking his eyes off the road, he noticed. "Relax," he said softly, in a tone that sent a shiver up my spine. The warmth of his hand seeped through the fabric of my pants, and each passing second seemed to make the air inside the truck heavier, more charged with something I could barely name. Then he slowed down, maneuvering the car onto the shoulder of a deserted dirt road, surrounded only by the endless green of the countryside. The engine idled, the radio still playing a soft melody, and the silence between us was filled only with the sound of our breathing. Without saying anything, he turned his face toward me and looked at me for a moment. His gaze had that familiar intensity, as if analyzing every detail, every reaction of mine. Then, with a slow but determined movement, he leaned in. My heart felt like it was about to burst out of my chest when I felt his lips touch mine. It was a calm kiss, exploratory, unhurried, as if he wanted to savor the moment as much as I did. His beard brushed lightly against my skin, causing an immediate shiver. My mind went blank. The world around me ceased to exist. All that mattered was the feeling of his touch, the way his lips moved over mine, sure, experienced. When he pulled away, he smirked, running his tongue over his own lips before murmuring, "Now we can continue." And without giving me time to process everything, he hit the gas again, getting back on the road as if nothing had happened. But inside me, everything was different. I knew that day still had much more in store. The road stretched ahead of us, surrounded by the endless green fields, while the truck's gentle sway made the atmosphere even more relaxed. Between laughter and teasing, our banter made the air lighter, dissolving any remaining nervousness. Daniel always found a way to challenge me, throwing playful comments that made me laugh without realizing it. Sometimes he would deliberately adjust the radio volume just to see my reaction, or pretend to take the wrong turn just to mess with me. His smile was easy, relaxed, and his eyes gleamed with a subtle mischief that sent a discreet shiver down my spine. And in the middle of this game, he would lean toward me, always in a natural way, as if it were the simplest thing in the world. His hand would leave the steering wheel for a few seconds, resting on my knee as if it already knew the way, and then his lips would find mine. The kiss was brief but full of intention, a warm, firm touch that left me breathless for a moment. Every time he did that, a smirk would appear on his face before he refocused on the road, as if it were just part of the journey. I tried to keep my composure, to pretend I wasn't so affected, but the truth was that with each kiss, the trip became even more intense, and the anticipation of what was yet to come only grew. As soon as we arrived at the farm, the smell of damp earth and the distant sound of cattle filled the air, giving that real sense of being in the countryside. The sun was already higher in the sky, spreading a gentle warmth over everything around us. Daniel parked the truck with the ease of someone who had done it for years and stepped out calmly, greeting the farm workers with his usual confident demeanor. I followed in his footsteps, paying attention to every detail. He patiently explained what needed to be done, from examining the animals to small procedures that were part of the daily routine. I tried to absorb everything as quickly as possible, but still, I sometimes found myself hesitating, especially when handling an animal. The first direct contact gave me a nervous chill. Feeling the raw strength of a struggling calf in my hands while we tried to hold it for an examination was a reality check. Daniel noticed my tension and with a light smile said, "Relax, kid. He can sense if you're nervous. You have to show confidence." I took a deep breath, trying to follow his advice, and little by little I adapted. With each new challenge, I gained more steadiness, more confidence, and Daniel made sure to reinforce every success of mine, throwing approving glances that gave me even more motivation. Between tasks, I watched him, trying to learn not just what he did, but how he did it. His way of handling the animals, his calm and controlled posture. Everything exuded an experience that fascinated me. And from time to time, when I least expected it, I would feel the brief touch of his hand on my shoulder or a more intense look, as if to remind me that, despite the focus on work, something still existed between us. After a long workday, it was around 3 in the afternoon when we finally finished. Fatigue weighed on my body, but the sense of accomplishment was even greater. We had lunch right there on the farm since there were no restaurants nearby. The homemade food had a simple but comforting taste, and the atmosphere was peaceful, with the sound of the wind rustling through the trees and the animals resting in the shade. Once we finished, we packed up and headed back. The dirt road stretched ahead, the afternoon sun starting to lose its strength, painting the sky in golden hues. I leaned back in the seat, feeling the truck's gentle sway, still processing everything I had learned that day. Then suddenly, Daniel took an unexpected detour. My heart gave a small leap in my chest, a mix of surprise and curiosity washing over me. I looked at him and asked, "Is everything okay?" He smirked, keeping his eyes on the road, and replied in that calm tone that always made me relax. "Everything's fine. I just want to show you something." Anxiety took over me, and I stayed silent, just waiting to see where we were going. The path became narrower, surrounded by trees that cast small shadows over the packed dirt road. The sounds of nature grew stronger. The singing of birds, the rustling of leaves, and then, little by little, a different sound emerged. When he finally parked, I was speechless. In front of us was a beautiful, almost deserted waterfall, hidden in the middle of the vegetation. The water cascaded down with force, forming a crystalline veil that reflected the sun's rays, and the breeze that came from it wrought a refreshing light sensation. The scenery was simply mesmerizing. I was enchanted by the view, my eyes scanning every detail of the place when I felt Daniel's gaze on me. I turned my face and found him watching me, the faint smile still present on his lips. "Liam, this place is special to me," he began, his voice carrying a sincere tone. "Whenever I'm not feeling well, I come here to ask God for strength. And when I'm happy, I come to give thanks." I took a few seconds to absorb those words, feeling the energy of the place around us. Then, without thinking too much, I asked, "And now? Are you happy or are you not feeling well?" He looked at me for a moment as if he wanted to capture that moment in his memory, and then he smiled, a true smile, one that came from deep within. "Unhappy," he said, his voice firm yet filled with emotion, "because you came into my life." Before I could respond, I felt his hands gently touch my face, and in a slow, certain movement his lips met mine. The kiss was intense, full of passion and meaning. There was no rush, only the connection between us, the perfect fit of our mouths, the warmth of his touch, and the shiver that ran down my skin. Right there, in that moment, surrounded by nature and the sound of the falling water, it felt like nothing else in the world existed but him and me. After a while, we got out of the truck and sat by the riverbank. We stayed there side by side, just feeling the energy of that place. The soft breeze passed over us, carrying a comfortable silence, as if the waterfall and the surrounding nature spoke for themselves. There was no need for words in that moment. Just being there together was enough. And for the first time, I felt that something inside me was exactly where it was meant to be. The fresh breeze from the waterfall enveloped the air, bringing a sense of calm as the sound of the falling water filled the silence between us. After a few minutes sitting by the riverbank, feeling that energy that seemed to soothe the soul, Daniel, with a natural and affectionate movement, lay down on the soft grass. Before I could react, he took my hand and gently pulled me onto him, guiding me until our bodies fit together perfectly. My heart immediately raced, and a shiver ran through my skin at the closeness. He looked at me with those intense eyes that always seemed to see beyond, and then our lips met once again. The kiss started slow, exploratory, but soon became deeper, more consuming. His hand slid firmly along my back, while the other moved up to my nape, holding me gently but with the certainty of someone who knew exactly what he wanted. My entire body seemed to respond to his touch. The warmth spreading between us, the woody scent of his cologne mixed with the fresh air of the countryside, the way he held me, everything about it felt so good it seemed unreal. I simply couldn't believe what was happening. Every kiss, every caress, every detail of that moment was imprinted on me as if it were something unique, something I would never forget. Lying on top of him, surrounded by nature and the heat of his body, I could only think that nothing in the world could be better than this. Lying there on the grass, with the soft sound of the waterfall in the background, the kiss grew more intense. The heat of his body against mine made my heart race, and every movement he made seemed calculated to make me surrender even more to that moment. I felt his hands begin to explore my body with gentle precision, tracing my torso with firm yet careful touches. A shiver ran through me instantly, making my body react beyond my control. His palm slid slowly, drawing paths that left me more excited, increasing the growing desire between us. That was when I realized it wasn't just me. His body was reacting too, and I could feel his arousal pressing against me. Daniel's breathing grew heavier, and he paused the kiss for just a moment to look at me, a smirk playing on his lips. His eyes held something different, an intense desire, mixed with the certainty that this was exactly what we both wanted. The world around us seemed to disappear. There was no rush, only the electricity in the air and the growing desire between us making that moment feel even more surreal. The fresh waterfall breeze blew against our skin, a perfect contrast to the heat building between us. Lying on the grass, our bodies were aligned, and the world around us seemed to vanish. The only thing I could feel was Daniel, his firm touch, his quickened breath mingling with mine, and the intense looks we exchanged without needing words. He pulled me onto him effortlessly, his hands gripping my waist firmly, guiding me exactly where he wanted. The smirk he gave before sealing our lips again sent a shiver through me. The kiss was different now, more intense, more desperate. I could feel his desire increasing by the second, and the way his fingers slid over my body made it clear that he wanted more. His lips traveled down my neck, slowly, exploring every inch of me with warm kisses and teasing bites. His stubble grazed against my skin, and every touch made my body react instantly. My heart was beating so fast I could feel the pulse in every part of me. Daniel knew exactly what he was doing. He turned me over slowly with no rush, never losing control of the situation, as if he were guiding me with precision. His breath grew heavier as he fit himself against me, and I felt the heat of his body covering mine. The first movement was slow, almost as if he wanted to test my reactions, to prolong the sensation, to make me feel every detail of that moment. His hand gripped my waist firmly, pulling me even closer to him, while his other hand slid down my shoulders, tracing down my chest in a touch that made me gasp. The sounds escaping him were low, restrained, but full of desire. The rhythm gradually intensified, and I could feel the growing passion between us, our bodies moving in perfect sync. He leaned over me, his lips brushing against my ear as he murmured in a deep, husky voice, "You are mine, Liam." Those words made me lose control. My body surrendered completely to his, feeling each wave of pleasure intensify with every movement. The way he held me as if he wanted to keep me there forever made everything feel even more intense. The climax came like an explosion that took our breath away. Our bodies trembled together, and for a few seconds, everything stopped. His breathing was still rapid as he let himself fall beside me, still holding me against him as if he never wanted to let go. We stayed there, feeling our hearts slow down while the cool breeze from the waterfall refreshed our heated skin. Daniel ran his hand through my hair, pulling me in for a softer kiss, calm yet still filled with desire. He looked into my eyes, his smile tired but genuine, and whispered, "I'm in love with you." For a moment, I felt my heart stop before it started racing again, this time in a different way. It wasn't just desire, it wasn't just the moment. It was something deeper, something more intense. I looked at him, cupping his face in my hands, feeling his breath mix with mine, and without hesitation, I answered with a sincere smile, "I'm in love with you too." His eyes sparkled, and before I could say anything else, he pulled me into another kiss. A different kiss, full of feeling, of surrender. There were no more doubts, no more uncertainty. It was just the two of us right there in that moment, living something that, deep down, had always been meant to happen. Suddenly, Daniel stood up, that mischievous glint still in his eyes, and extended his hand to me. "Come on," he said, laughing before pulling me up without warning. Before I could react, I was already on my feet, being dragged toward the water. "Daniel, wait." I tried to protest between laughs, but it was too late. With a firm tug, he pulled me in, and within seconds, the cold water of the waterfall surrounded us, making me let out a surprised gasp, followed by a burst of laughter. The contrast of the cold water against our heated skin was invigorating. The gentle current wrapped around us as we swam, laughing like two kids who had just escaped their responsibilities. Daniel dove under and surfaced near me, splashing water onto my face just to tease me. "Oh, you're gonna pay for that," I joked, chasing after him, though deep down, I was loving every second of that spontaneous, perfect moment. We stayed there for a while, letting the water embrace us, enjoying the feeling of lightness and freedom. Nothing needed to be said. Just glances, subtle touches, and exchanged smiles said everything. After some time, we got out of the water, our clothes soaked and clinging to our bodies. The sun was already starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange. We dressed slowly, still laughing, and made our way back to the truck. When Daniel started the engine and hit the road again, I leaned back in my seat, feeling a pleasant exhaustion wash over me. I glanced at him from the corner of my eye, and he shot me a smirk, one hand steady on the wheel, the other resting absent-mindedly on my thigh. I knew that day would be etched in my memory forever, and for the first time, I felt that something truly special was only just beginning. We were a few miles from home, the radio playing softly, the empty road stretching ahead of us, when I felt Daniel gently take my hand and guide it to his thigh. My eyes followed the movement, and before I could ask anything, he flashed me that mischievous smile, the kind that said everything without a single word. For a moment, I hesitated, trying to figure out if it was just a casual gesture, or if there was something more behind it. But then, when our eyes met and I saw the way he slightly arched his eyebrow, I knew exactly what he wanted. What happened next? Well, I can't tell you here, but if you want to hear the full, uncut version, the link is in the video description. Kisses, and see you next time. I hope you enjoyed the trip as much as I did. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single story. See you soon.